Hello, bonjour. My name is Elder. Welcome back to the Open Debate. We're here for an interview with Chris Barber, aka Big Red. We're going to wait for a few people to pop in, but I'm sure we're going to have a very good and interesting conversation here throughout the evening. I appreciate everybody who is here that's showing up. Make sure that you tap the screen and share the stream to anybody who's interested in this type of conversation. But it should be good. It should be interesting. It should be a well rounded conversation. If you have any questions, drop them below in the chat. I'd love to hear them, and I'll keep them in mind as we're having the conversation. But yeah, I'm excited for what's going to happen throughout the evening. Discussion about all things that has happened throughout the past year or so here in Canada, and looking into the future, what's going on in the future, what's going on in our own lives, TikTok things, all sorts of discussions will be had this evening. Just gonna wait for Big Red to pop on in, and I'll bring him on into the conversation, and we will get things started. But I appreciate everybody showing up once again. Make sure that you tap the screen and share the stream to anybody you think would be interested in this conversation. If you're watching at a later date, I appreciate you being here. These conversations are uploaded to YouTube at the Open Debate, and so if you're ever looking for a full live stream interactive experience, you can always go over there and see the full streams. And I upload clips daily here. I see Big Red in the comments, so whenever you request to join, I'll bring him in and we'll get the conversation started. I appreciate everybody that's showing up, that is doing their things and sharing the stream. You guys are awesome. We're already up to 50 likes, which is pretty dang good. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for what you all are accomplishing. Here's Big Red.
What's that?
Appreciate
How
you
are
coming
you?
out. How you doing today? I'm not too
I'm
bad. How are
really
you? How are
good.
you doing?
It's good. I'm down in Southwest Saskatchewan right now. Hopefully my cell service is good. I see I got some good bars here. We should be fine. So.
Nice. You're working?
I am working. We had an event to go to in Calgary on Wednesday for Eva Chipiak at Canadians for Truth. So we just got back from that last night late, and now I got to catch up on some work. So got a few loads. I'll be trucking all weekend by the looks of it.
Nice. That's not too bad at all. That's definitely a question people had for me. Are you still working? Are you still going hard? Are you still in the trucking industry? And so you answered it right off the bat.
Yeah. Yeah, we do agriculture hauling equipment across the border around the prairie provinces here. So I lost a driver, as most people know, at the end of November to a sudden illness, and so I've been running his truck. Big Red's been parked at home in the shop and just doing maintenance on it, getting it all cleaned up for the spring. And then my son wiped out on the ice here, well, 2 weeks ago, I guess, and busted his arm up. So he's at home in a cast. I'm running his truck right now, trying to keep up, and I got a buddy helping out here too. So we'll get caught up, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sounds a little bit stressful, but it seems like you got it under control.
I know stress quite well. I think I'm okay with it, so we'll just keep dealing with it and move on. So
Yeah. Well, no, it seems like you're doing well, and I'm glad to hear that things are moving forward, even with the hiccups that you're finding at the moment.
a new day, a new hiccup, and we just keep working through them and try to keep it positive, I guess. There's a lot of negative out there right now. Yeah, you gotta stay clear from it because it tends to get you down if you let it. So
Yeah. It definitely can. So I want to start things off by saying I appreciate you coming out tonight. I thank you for coming into the conversation. We've been doing this one-on-one interview style discussion here on the channel since the beginning of the year. I've decided to move away from these open forums of everybody talking over each other, and I'd like to. The whole point of this channel is to get to know what people believe on a one-on-one basis. And when everybody screams over each other, you don't really get the chance to understand where people are coming from. And so I'd rather give an opportunity to individuals and have a conversation one on one and hear full out from these people what they believe and where they're coming from, rather than hopping into a live and competing with three or four other people.
I agree 100%. No, that sounds good. That is one of the annoying things about the lives when you're trying not to talk over everybody, but you end up doing it anyway. So
I try not to do it, but I do it. It's like you can't stop yourself.
no. There's always a delay on the lives too, where you're trying to wait to see who's going to speak first, and then you talk over somebody else. So.
It's exactly it. You try to be respectful, and by being respectful, you end up accidentally being disrespectful to somebody else.
Yeah. Somebody
With that
says no
being said,
zippy. No, there's no zippy. There's a zippy on the
Oh,
passenger seat. He was just growling out the window at some imaginary figures out in. We're in a ghost town right now. We're in Robsart, Saskatchewan, Canada. We are in population. I think there's one person that lives here. I'm parked on Main Street, just loaded a tractor out of a farmer's yard across the road. And the old general store is here, the old lumber store, I think the old hotel. It's all abandoned. The lights are still on Main Street here, the street lights. It's a cool old town if anybody knows Robsart.
true. So I take it you run into these types of situations quite often. The experiences that the average person doesn't get to experience. Being in the middle of a ghost town at night,
Yep.
while nobody's around, but you have to be there.
Yeah, well, I just took Zip for a walk, and we just walked up Main Street past the old hotel and all the empty, abandoned buildings, and they're boarded up. Some are starting to fall down. I hauled grain out of here about 20 some years ago, so I'm familiar with the area. It's kind of you think back 50 years, and this place was a bustling little place.
It's insane how much things can change. We're going to be talking about
Yeah.
that tonight, about the change in life and how things can move forward. To start things off, just to anybody out there that's listening, I appreciate everybody that is there that has been tapping the screen, sharing the stream. I see a lot of individuals that have come out to listen to you speak this evening. I'm sure that they are quite eager to hear what's going on inside your mind. To throw things into the first line of questioning, to anybody out there who doesn't or is not familiar with you, Chris, or big old Big Red, as the truck suggests. Tell us just a little bit about yourself, what you do, and why the majority of Canadians know your name right now in 2023.
Well, I'm a farm boy, a country boy. I've been born and raised in central Saskatchewan my whole life. I've been a truck driver for almost 30 years now. I haul equipment across the border. I get hardworking for the most part. I'm always doing something. Lots of hobbies that I haven't really had a time to play with for the last probably 12 months. We had a little experience where we took a drive last fall about this, or the last winter about this time, and caused a little bit of people to start thinking. I think so. I've got conditions for my bail hearing, and I just like to get this out of the way right away that I'm not allowed to support the convoy remaining in the city of Ottawa, and there is no convoy. There is no convoy going back, and I'm not in support of any future convoys. To be honest with you, it's just not something where I don't think we need to do right now. I think we let things play out in the courts and where it needs to play out, and then we figure it out afterwards. But yeah, so in the news a little bit in the last 12 months, I'd have to say I took part in the public inquiry in Ottawa back in November and was back in the limelight again. I got to tell some truths, and I think things went really well there. I can't wait for the decision on February 20th from Justice Rouleau whether the Emergencies Act was actually called for or not.
Mm-hmm. It'll be an interesting situation that comes into effect. And one thing that I will just request from you, you can do what you'd like. I'm sure there will be many comments. You can easily swipe away, but try to just keep it with you and I because the comments are they're gonna throw us off for sure. And I will definitely try to get to any comments that are definitely that are important, but don't let them get to you because I'm sure there will be many people with different opinions. And I hate when it influences how people are feeling in the conversation because it's just you and I talking right now, and they can speak around however they feel. But I do appreciate
I can
that.
watch it,
And
or I could take the glasses off, and we won't be able to see a darn thing. But
you just can't read them. Yeah, I
exactly.
respect where you're coming from, and I understand that there are certain things that you're not able to speak about or say, especially in relation to moving forward with any new movements like that. And I agree with you, even if that's not your belief and it's something you only forced to say. I personally agree that at this point in time, we should try to figure out what's going on. And there is a situation that happened. And moving forward, we should probably figure out the repercussions of everything in general. We're still dealing with the fallout of everything. And so leading from that, I will ask you this because I'm sure you're able to discuss certain aspects around how you feel about what happened, not going forward, but what has already retrospectively happened. And so, what a lot of people would love to know, and what I'd really like to know, is if you could just take us back to how you felt before this started and what brought you in to being a part of this situation.
So I've always been I guess I've always been a little bit mindful of what's been going on in the country the last while. I know that Ottawa seems to have a grip on the rest of the country, and I think it's gone too far, and I've felt that way for quite some time. And so going through the pandemic in the first little while when COVID hit and it was first landed on in Canada and we were locked down and I drove right through the thing. I never shut the truck off when COVID hit. The stuff that we had to go through right off the bat. I First thing I did was put a Keurig in the truck so I could make my own coffee in the morning because you couldn't get a coffee. Everything was shut down. You couldn't eat in a restaurant. We didn't have bathrooms. I don't think anybody understands what truck drivers went through at the beginning. And I'm not, and this is just the truck drivers, the healthcare people and emergency response and all that. They had their vital roles too. But I mean, we were back to the good old days where you're shitting in the forest or shitting in the grass. You had no place to go. And that was a challenge. I think I made it about the first 2 weeks into it, and I came home and told my wife, I said, I can't do this. Like, you're eating cans of soup out of a can, and and then eventually got a little better where you could at least order takeout, and we found ways to get around it, or you could use a bathroom or a public bathroom and get a shower. Um, and then when the restrictions started coming in, the passport thing, that burned my ass. When Scott Moe introduced that in Saskatchewan in October 1st, he lost me as a supporter. I was, you know, it wasn't doing any good. Make it make sense. I guess that's the thing we keep going back to is make it make sense. Tell me how a piece of paper and a vaccine that we're not sure about right now that's not truly tested is going to determine how we run society. And you're alienating a certain part of it. And I became vaccinated. I had to in order to cross the border. But when I started hearing all the stories about people that had worked for me over the years or good friends of mine that were going to lose their job because they didn't feel like they wanted to go get the vaccine. My son is one of them. He's against it 100%. He's still unvaccinated. He's still yet to have COVID. He's yet to have. I've had COVID in the cab of a truck with him 12 months ago on a road trip east, and he didn't get COVID, and I'm vaccinated. He's not. So explain that to me, other than a good immune system. But watching my friends and other fellow Canadians that were going to lose their jobs when we're busy as can be, and there's not enough drivers in this industry, at least qualified drivers. It burned my ass to the point where, that text message came in from Miss Belton, and things went from there, and it started somewhat of a movement, I guess. It was kind of somebody had to say something, somebody had to do something because nobody else was doing anything. The doctors weren't standing up. Everybody wanted to, but people were just maybe too scared to. So, and I've always kind of had a big mouth, so.
And so things kind of came to a boiling point for you before this was going on. And so within the same line of questioning, how did you find yourself becoming involved with this movement moving forward?
I guess I would have been considered one of the originals, I guess. My job was to try and, I guess, orchestrate the West. And then Miss Belton did her part. And then as that kind of progressed, more people came into play. You had people from BC, Alberta, Manitoba. We got a few people, good friends of mine in Manitoba that got involved. And it just progressed. It was something completely and totally organic that morphed into something that I guess changed history. It's hard to describe it now, and knowing when it started off, nobody expected it to go anywhere. I had phone calls with good buddies of mine that said, "You're wasting your time. It's never going to go anywhere. Why are you even bothering?" And I said, if we keep that attitude going, we're going to go nowhere. So tell me why we couldn't try, and we did. And a lot of people made phone calls afterwards saying, "Holy shit." I take that back.
Yeah, they had a second opinion around how they had treated you and the ideologies that you were putting forward. Can I ask you this then, I guess? What did you find or what did you see throughout Canada from the previous year before you were impacted in your own life Did you see people standing up for their rights? People sitting at town halls every Saturday, or people protesting whatsoever before you started speaking up?
I'd say I did. I say there was a small group. I have never been politically motivated like that. I've never been a protester. I've never stood up for. I just been out here doing my job, and until the government started hindering that, one step after another. I know the provincial mandates come in. I know the difference between the provincial mandates and the federal mandates, but the end game was the federal mandates to close the borders for non-vaccinated truckers. And I know to this day that the U.S. still has those restrictions on. Those never did change for the U.S. So Canada, I mean, we did. We had mask mandates. You got to go back 12 months. Marco Mancino, whatever the hell his name is, was talking about doing provincial check stops, for COVID, and then that went away under pressure. So
Hmm. Um, just kind of like what I was like trying to like discuss is the idea that before this movement that did wake up the notion in a lot of Canadians' minds, I did see a lot of people out there speaking about the exact same things, but they were labeled as people who were going out of their way to complain. They were just not taken seriously. And the reason why I think a lot of people woke up, and I'm not calling you out on this specifically, but the description does add as to why things projected and started moving forward. When individuals are personally impacted, they feel the results and the weight of these actual policies and the way that the government is moving forward. Um, I think that a lot of people were affected previously, but a lot larger group of people were affected during the time that you had started speaking about these things, and I think Canada woke up during that time.
somewhat woke up. Yeah, there's still so many out there that I have a lot of discussions with a lot of different people, and left or right, I can have a conversation with anybody. It doesn't. I may seem like I hate on the trolls or hate on the left, but I'd buy anybody a beer and have a good civil conversation. I don't always like to fight with people, but there's a lot of people that are just compliant, complacent. I've seen a lot of families fall apart in the last number of months. Mine included. My relatives, to this day, I said in December, there was family members of mine that won't take part in Christmas or had troubles at Christmas because one of the family members was unvaccinated. And yet you can still get COVID, give COVID, die from COVID, apparently. But yeah,
Hmm.
more people stood up. I think it woke more people. I know looking out the windshield on the 3,000 kilometer drive, seen a lot of people that woke up. If only I had a GoPro that if I would have ever expected it was what it was, I would have mounted a GoPro on the truck. It would have been insane.
And I'm sure that there are some people out there that have not the full perspective coming from out west to central, but I think there are some people that have the footage. I don't know where it is. I don't know why we haven't seen it. Perhaps it is a propaganda scheme. That's just my conspiratorial mind at play. I have to ask you this question, though, in relation to the situation at hand and you yourself saying that you would take anybody out for a beer. It doesn't matter about your political opinion. That's not where you're coming from. Do you think that this movement was started by any sort of political side, and or do you think any political side latched on to the movement?
Well, that was the thing that we really tried hard to do. It wasn't. It was started by grassroots. There's no political thing. I know people like to grasp at the thing that Tamara belonged to the Maverick Party of Canada, and they ran with that, trying to make that an evil thing, which it was never. We never allowed politicians to become part of the equation. I remember one of the first persons that I ran into when I jumped off the truck in the city was Bernier, and he tried to be a part of it, but we'd already made up our mind previous. So we weren't gonna. There wasn't something we were looking for. We didn't. We've seen it before. You involve the political parties, and then you lose traction, and they use it to their advantage. This was something different where we wanted people to come. We wanted them to come to us, I guess, and not via picking a party. It was never about a party. And the first party that was impacted would have been the Conservative Party of Canada when O'Toole resigned or voted out.
Okay. And that was as a result of what was happening with the movement, in your opinion?
I think they were looking for an excuse to get rid of him, and the movement is what caused his demise, I guess.
Hmm. I can definitely understand how that could come into play. So, and then the second half of that question, do you believe that any political party has overstepped their bounds and utilized this movement for their own political gain?
I don't believe so. I don't believe any of them did. They've all kind of kept their distance. Some have showed support, some haven't. And Pierre would have, I guess, was standing on an overpass somewhere watching this, but still hasn't met with anybody. Candice Bergen apparently wanted to meet Tamara at an A&W downtown, closed, no cameras, and that never happened. No, I think the PPC party would have been the only one, like Bernier would have been the only one that tried, I guess, but we weren't prepared to do that. That wasn't something we were trying to do, was to get political. It was never politics, right? It was trying to hold the government to account or get some answers out of it at least.
Because that's one thing that I will put forward that I will say is like if you were in Ottawa, then you definitely remember and know that you could easily pick up PPC merch because they set up stands all over. But
Yeah.
nobody was being shunned away. They were a political party that was there, not doing anything wrong, showing support,
Nope.
and also
Yep.
selling $50 sweaters that nobody was buying because people were giving away free clothes. So why would I buy a $50 PPC sweater? No offense to your political party, but they did not make me want to join them by doing
You know,
that.
I remember somebody walked up to me and gave me a whole bag of wood. There were wool socks, like a bag of them. I don't know. There must have been 25 pair in them. They had the names of what on it. And I spent the next couple of days walking around downtown handing them out to homeless people. And it was the best thing in the world. We made use of certain things, and everybody was looked after. So,
Hmm. There was a lot of good situations that happened throughout that situation, but we will get to that if you're here for the conversation. We're going to be around for a little bit. One thing that I really do want to ask you in relation to what we're talking about right now, you're friends with Tamara. I don't know her very much. We've spoken a bit before in the past and stuff. Like I know you, I don't know you, but like we've spoken. I don't claim to have never spoken to you before. Um,
yeah.
but myself, right? I have a different ideology when it comes to the idea of leadership and the way things happen. Because I do believe that it was an organic movement. I have lots of beliefs in my own sense, but I want to hear from you. Do you believe that the situation that happened had leadership? And if so, who were the leaders and like how did that start? Because for me, I heard about it organically. So for you, I would love to hear that opposite perspective of how things came together.
Well, it was like you said, it was organic. I don't want to say there was a leader because there was so many people there. I mean, we all had a place. My place was. I realized right off the bat that my place wasn't in front of a TV screen or at a news conference. My place was walking the streets, making sure everybody was safe, everybody was well looked after. If there's any concerns, or I spent daily walking with police officers, making sure we were right, and lawyers, you name it. We worked with local city police daily. Um, Tamara had her place in the microphone, I guess. Then there was all the others. Everybody had a job, everybody fit, and if you came in and there was a need for you, you found out what your need was and you went to work. It was whether you were shoveling sidewalks with a snow shovel, or handing out food or coffee or whatever it may be. Everybody had a place, so there was really no. I mean, they want to label everybody as an organizer or the originals. I don't really. There's no real kingpin, I guess. There's no real. Everybody had a job. Everybody had a place,
Hmm.
and nobody was any lesser for doing it.
100%. And that's not where I definitely feel that. I think that everybody was like they're organically doing their own things. I just think that positions have been thrust into situations. So I'll try to figure it out in a way that is formulated in the best possible question here. Um, all right. So the idea of leadership, it's not about leadership. It's kind of like to tie things in, I can ask you on a deeper level. For you yourself, growing up, have you always found yourself being thrust into positions of authority or power or leadership? And how did you find yourself being somebody who other individuals were looking up to in this movement?
I would probably say I would probably say no. I've ran a business now I started my company in 2016, not 2016. I don't remember what year it was. Must have been 2006, I believe. Yeah, 2006. So I've been in business for a number of years. I've had up to 15 employees. Long haul. Yeah, I like the smaller atmosphere. I don't like being that in your face boss. And that's why I don't have many employees now. And the ones that I do have, I can trust and know what their jobs are. No, I've never been that kind of authoritarian person. More passive aggressive. If you come at me, I'll come back at you. But for the most part, if somebody approaches me kindly, I will be respectful and kind back. I guess you get you get what you give with me, apparently. But no, I liked it when somebody else took the role of the telling people what to do. I've never been necessarily that kind of guy.
So, did it surprise you when so many people within the country that you live in, the citizens of that country, started looking up to you as a quote unquote leader, even throughout the time that was moving forward into the situation? Because you are looked up to by a lot of individuals here in Canada.
I tell you what it did, Todd. It woke me up, I think, and it matured me in a positive way, a very positive way. I probably, like I said in the testimony at the inquiry, nobody grew as much as what I'd done in the last probably year. I learned a lot of stuff. I've met a lot of people and realized that there's a lot more eyes looking at me than maybe back. There's a lot of children out there. The one thing that I can be really proud of is that the children like semis again and they look up to these trucks. So if you go back to my videos a couple years ago, I cursed a lot more and it was a lot more, I guess, a lot more vulgar. Now I think before I say a bad word on here because I know there's a lot of people watching and a lot of children at that too. So I don't want to be that guy. But get me one on one with a box of beer, and I can cuss like a sailor.
I feel that bad. I understand that perspective, especially looking into the newfound. This is what I'm saying. This is actually like where the question is going. So I just had a quick commercial break there. Um, the idea of the amount of individuals, the eyes that are on you. So a question in relation to that is right here. Um, Trying to formulate it properly. Um, it's like I can't even see it, but it has to do with the idea that like how has your life changed and now that you have so many eyes on you? Like you just expressed, you think before you post things all the time. But in retrospect and moving forward, like how do you see the world differently? Sorry. Let me stop. Let me reiterate the question just to formulate it, right? Um, because I just realized what it was. How does it personally feel to go from being relatively unknown in Canadian society to almost overnight being widely known by almost every Canadian citizen?
It's definitely humbling, I guess. Yeah, it's been different for even somebody like my wife going into a restaurant or going into a somewhere where people know you, and it takes the attention. It's taken the attention off of her a little bit, and something we've had to work through as a couple, I guess, a lot different. There's no, we go out for supper in a restaurant and somebody's stopping by the table. I guess humbled me a lot more. I've maybe always been approachable, and I still am. If somebody comes up and has a conversation with me, I'll talk back. And I can't say that I've changed that much, but I've matured. I think is the important word to say is I've matured a lot in the last year. I've seen a different side of Canada. I've the one big thing that in the West here, we were always growing up in rural Saskatchewan. You're raised to dislike or think that the East is against you, and maybe some politicians in Ottawa may think that. But a lot of the vast Canadians that I've met in the last 12 months, we're one big family. We proved that, and when I watched an Alberta person hugging somebody from Quebec on a street corner in Ottawa, that was a big moment. I noticed because it opened my eyes so much to that. Jumping in the truck and we had a couple clans brothers that were with us the entire time in Ottawa, and I spent a lot of time with Sandy and Nolene. I mean, those are two God sense of people. We had some really intelligent conversations and some really awesome eye opener conversations, and it opened my eyes to the culture of Canada in whole.
Hmm. Well, I appreciate that form of thought, and I definitely understand where you're coming from there. I think that it is an interesting situation where Canadians come together on a different level. And in retrospect, when you learn and grow from those experiences, it puts into perspective what it means to be Canadian. So here's a question I don't have written down. What does it mean to be Canadian to you?
Well, we deal with a lot of shit though, right? Like it's Canada is one of those places where it's absolutely beautiful, whether you're in winter or summer. And I live in a part of Saskatchewan where I'm 2 miles from Lake Diefenbaker. And if anybody's been around Lake Diefenbaker before, it's a long ways down into the water. It's not quite like Drumheller in Alberta, but we've got a vast hill section behind us, and it's flat as you can see for miles and miles until you come over a hill and realize there's a big gaping coulee there with water at the bottom of it. So I enjoy our country. I love our scenery. I love our northern lights. I just love the atmosphere of this country. It's changed a lot in the last number of years, but we have to get back to the point where where we have some more of our freedoms back. I think most people are so complacent now that the Canada that we grew up in isn't necessarily here anymore, but it's still in grasp. We just need to reach out. Some of us need to open our eyes a little bit better, but
So, Chris, you can see that we're from different generations. We are different races. We are different. Well, who knows about our gender ideologies? Who gives a shit right now about this and the conversation that we're having? But regardless, perhaps they're different. Um, so we're not the same person. We have different ideologies, but we're both Canadian citizens. And so one thing that I want to push forward to you, and don't think that I'm attacking you whatsoever, because I know that you addressed this in the EA situation. Um,
Mhm.
but people do discuss the fact that you've discussed things or talked about negative things in the past about immigrants or immigration essentially. Let's not center out any individual. Immigration, right? And so in Canada, moving into 2023, what are your thoughts around that? Just to allow you to express yourself and explain yourself as freely as you are as the individual who has grown and has perhaps thought differently about their life
Yeah,
choices and
absolutely.
how they thought. So what are your thoughts
I obviously
on immigration in 2023?
met a lot of awesome people in this country, especially in the last 12 months. And yeah, skin color and quarter. Maybe growing up in central Saskatchewan before not having a lot to do with the rest of Canada, essentially, maybe being a little sheltered in that respect. And my eyes being open in the last 12 months to a lot of different stuff. I've seen and met a lot of people that have made a huge impact on myself and the way that I act on social media. For number one, I guess I would use, like I've told people in the past, I'm a troll. I've done a lot of stuff on social media where I would post something provocative and then wait for the trolls to come in and I would post it publicly so I could fight with them. and I'd start an engagement, and whether it be a good conversation or not. Obviously, I wouldn't do that now. It's a different frame of mind that I'm in. The Confederate flag was a big topic and conversation that we can talk about right now. I still to this day, the reason why I thought the Confederate flag wasn't a bad thing is because I looked at it as a different way than what some other people do. If you view it, I've got an African American lady friend that lives in Georgia, and many in-depth conversations with her over why would you have that flag. And so I'd say, Cheryl, well, like it's the General Lee, it's the Dukes of Hazzard, it's Kid Rock, it's Leonard Skinner. When we grew up, it was called the Rebel flag, the Dixie flag. We never associated with the Confederate War. When somebody wants to put it in that context, yeah, I took it down. But up until that time, and I still feel that there's still a car that drives around my hometown of Swift Car, and it's a little, I don't even know what it is. It's a little car painted like the General Lee, for crying out loud, with the Dixie flag on the roof of it. And I don't think this guy gets chased down with eggs by any mean, but um, yeah,
Hmm.
I've zip tied the flags up so they're not even visible in the shop anymore, and I don't hang them anymore. And I did that to still the conversation because I still think there's two different ways to look at that flag, and the way that I did isn't as bad as what some other people and this wokeness that's hit everybody. Everything's offensive now. Let's have a conversation about it instead of fighting about it for a change. Is what I'd like to do. But
So I want to keep having this conversation. I'll move it back to what we were talking about previously. But when it comes to the Confederate flag, I had a specific question down here
yep.
to ask you. You answered the entire question, except for one part. So it is, what is your personal connection to the Confederate flag? Oh, sorry, you didn't answer two parts. You didn't actually answer the question, but you answered a lot of what I want to know about your ideology behind it. So I will reiterate. What is your personal connection to the Confederate flag, and do you support it at future protests if they were to ever happen?
So number one, I never supported it at the protest. Something the Confederate flag. I'll always go back to my story and why I had the flag in my shop to begin with. Was driving across Missouri and seeing a flag shop on the side of the highway at the corner of a truck stop, and I thought, "Holy shit, you can't buy that flag anymore!" And it was like a novelty. It was a souvenir that you grabbed, and I in my shop at home, I hang flags on the wall, and I did just that, not realizing that so many people were offended by it. I guess Kid Rock's actually quit flying it, but in the last 10 years, he was pretty prominent with that. Everywhere you went, it was a Kid Rock, and the Confederate flag was together. What was your first part of that question?
So the first part is, what is your personal connection to it? Why do you feel as though, like, what do you like about it? Like, what is your connection? Why would you want it around it? Because you're Canadian, you're not American or anything, right?
Yeah, no, Canadian. So the Dukes of Hazzard. I mean, we grew up with that. I'm of that generation where little Bo and Luke Duke and the General Lee, and also when we grew up, like I said, in high school it was different. I can't tell you how many of my buddies had rebel flag license plate covers or rebel flag across the back window of their pickup truck. It was a rebel flag. It wasn't a racist flag back then. It was a rebel flag. In my head, there was a totally different way to view that than what some people do.
And that's 100% valid. This was in Saskatchewan.
Yep.
Well, it doesn't
Don't
matter where it
listen.
is. I just wondered where it was. I think that that's a valid perspective to have. And then in retrospect, how do you feel about it today in 2023?
Well, I can definitely see both sides of it. So, in saying that, I didn't take it down in the shop, but what I did was I went up on a ladder and I ran a zip tie around it. So it's a distorted piece of cloth on the wall. So conversation piece. If somebody comes in, it's something we can talk about and discuss. If somebody's offended by it, then it's not noticeable on the wall anyway. So I kind of it was a good compromise as far as I'm concerned there.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point of view, and I think that's respectful. The idea of it being a conversation piece, something to discuss, and something that you can retrospectively look back on and you've learned about in your life. Everybody has different ideas around how they feel about it right now. And I'm not saying that I am for or against right now. I'm just saying I am interested in hearing how you have come to the decisions that you have come to, because a large point of contention with this previous situation that happened in this last year here are these flags and the individuals who were flying them. I know one thing, if you remember this, nobody's ever talked about this. I've never heard one person say this. I don't know who the guys were, but the two dudes ripping around on their horses with their Confederate flags downtown Ottawa. Do you know these guys?
I
Straight
don't remember
American.
anybody.
They were claiming they were
I don't
from the
remember.
U.S.
Yeah. On
I
horses?
I have video. I have mad videos of them because it was a fun time. It was cool. They had two horses running up and down right in front of Parliament, flying Confederate flags and their cowboy hats and stuff. But nobody's ever really talked about them. I don't know who they were.
No.
They said they were from the U.S. and they said they traveled down to Ottawa. Because I talked to them, and I haven't posted so many videos. I have so many videos from when I was in Ottawa. I may even have videos of you and I talking. Who knows? Back in the day.
Probably.
Right? Well, I have
I
lots of
don't
videos of your
remember that.
truck. That's for sure.
I don't. I know I got reports just about any time there was. I know I got a phone call when the Nazi flag came out. I know I got a phone call when the guy showed up on the hill with the Confederate flag and he was all dressed. I mean, say what you want and come up with whatever excuses you can. There was a few people around with it. I walked into the hotel once and there was a sticker on the side of one of the trucks, a little Confederate flag on the bottom window, and it wasn't a place for it. I think there's time for a discussion for it, and you can beat away back and forth on whether you think you're right or not on it. I don't think Ottawa was a place for the Confederate flag. I thought it was distasteful. Um, it wasn't something that needed to be there. Somebody throwing around the Nazi flag, I could say unequivocally that was a plant. As I wouldn't associate with anybody with a bloody Nazi flag
Well, there
running
were at
around that.
least
I don't even.
three. There are at least
Was there
three
three?
individuals. So the one dude with the truck flag, the Confederate truck flag, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure that on the
We
other
found
side
out
it
who
was a
that was.
Nazi flag. If I'm wrong, I think that maybe I'm wrong with that. Maybe it was just the conservative or the Confederate
Confederate. Yeah.
truck flag, and it got conflated with these two. But there was one dude who was photographed at least three or four times in different areas. A shorter, chubby guy, full dress mask and gray or a brown jacket. And then there was another dude who was just straight up dressed like, if I picture what a is in my head, I picture this guy. He had like a goose like I don't know. I'm gonna call it a goose cut. He had like my style of hair if this was shaved, but also
Yeah.
short, but also a little bit long. Black ass hair, high top boots, tight
Oh
pants,
yeah.
black everything, a flag on a pole, and he's raising his hand. I'm like, buddy, okay, you got to get out of here. And everybody in the background, even in the pictures, everybody's
Yeah.
screaming at him. But that guy as well. I don't like none of these people are being called out. So regardless, I just don't think that that was part of the situation. But I'd love to hear from you in your own words. As you already said, you disagree with that being there. But what are your thoughts around the individuals who were at that event that did display that type of emotion? Not only just them, okay, yes, just them, and then we'll speak about something afterwards. So, just the individuals who were outright espousing a hateful ideology.
Yeah. I didn't, and honestly, I can tell you, I never seen that. I was never down there when somebody was out there. They weren't welcome, and they were actually heckled out of the area whenever they were seen. Um, I heard all the stories, but like I said, I was always, we bounced around from one part of town to the other a lot, trying to make sure everything was fine, and we were, out at the camps, and we were all over the place. And I was never around for it. If I would have seen it personally, I would have told the person it's distasteful. The Nazi flag, I don't even know where that came from. I heard stories that there was a guy down on Wellington that had a Nazi flag, but and he had written all over it, if you don't know, this is the direction of where your country's going if you don't stop it now, something like that. I believe Sean Folks actually was in contact with him. And as we all know, Sean is African American, so he hopefully, I don't, he didn't say anything bad when I spoke to him about it. he said it was
I'm
distasteful,
gonna
but
stop. I'm gonna stop you right there for 2 seconds because if Sean Folks, everybody, make sure that you DM me that name, Sean Folks, and I can try to talk to him myself. Because what I'm saying to you right now has nothing to do with either of those situations. Because if this individual was the person that Sean Folks is talking about, he was also photographed going into the same hotel that the RCMP was staying with, the guy
I
with the
heard that.
brown jacket. Like he's been photographed like 3 or 4 times where he was with all of these people. That is clearly like you're not here for the event. You're here with this separate group of people. And then B, the other guy. If this guy, I don't even think it was a plant. I think that he just was a weird person. The guy that was straight up like looked like everything had the flag on a weird little pole, not even like a normal pole. Didn't have it on a hockey stick. Didn't have it on anything like a normal stick. He had it on this weird pole. Everything was perfectly aligned, and I just disagree. And if there's another situation, I understand how these things have come in. I think that what was going on was okay. I have lots of beliefs. Doesn't matter what I believe. I can ask you more questions rather than me going on. But like in retrospect, do you feel as though the situation that happened during that time was infiltrated by outside sources that took advantage of what was happening and the attention that was being given to that movement?
I don't think so. I think for the small amount of people that maybe had bad intentions there, you're always going to have somebody in the crowd that you're not going to agree with or that's there for the wrong purpose. I think we did our best as a group to mitigate that, to make sure that those people were either shunned or sent home. I think it was a self-policing crowd for the most part. Um, I don't think they were. I don't think they were successful if they were there. I remember Antifa reports on a regular basis. Antifa would show up in the night, and we've witnessed them getting out of their van and putting their, dressing up in their black jackets, and they were up for no good. They were out doing a lot of harm, and so we set up our own security. Guys were there watching their own equipment, watching everybody else's equipment. Those people were dealt with. Those people were, phoned into law enforcement. I think anytime there was somebody there with the wrong intentions, it was dealt with properly. I don't think they got. Of course, the media is going to pick up on it, right? Because they'd rather pick up on the negative, something bad with one guy with a Confederate flag, but they're gonna totally miss the fact that there's 2,500 Canadian flags in one small area, which was a patriotic symbol that I'll probably never forget.
Yeah. Um, I definitely understand what you're saying. There were a lot of people there. There were a lot of different individuals. There was definitely some mischief that happened, and I don't think that it was due to any sort of ideological position that was put forward. I think that if you're going to have such a large influx of individuals that are in a certain area, there are going to be bad apples, and you can't not A, claim them, or B, get rid of them. You need to figure out where they are. And if you have a good security situation, maybe you can get rid of them, but there are always going to be bad apples in the crowd
Yeah,
that try to take over situations. It does happen. It does happen quite a bit.
it does.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that it was an interesting situation. I have lots of questions here for you, though, man. So many questions. Um, if you're down to chill out and talk for a little bit, like man, I think that I'm interested. I think a lot of people are interested to hear what you have to say just about these things. If you're able to talk about it, just like retrospectively, we're not really talking about the future or anything.
Yep, no worries. We've
I'm
got
trying to
trial
be
of
as
person.
I'm
Yeah,
trying to
I
be as
can.
clear cut as possible. Um, so
Is Sean in the comments right now? Did somebody say? I don't want to take away from our conversation, but I think somebody just said that Sean Folks is in the conversation. So
Deshaun,
yeah, possibly, yeah.
oh buddy, your buddy that was there.
Yeah.
if after in just like a minute or two, or even right now, if he's here and he wants to come in and you want him to come in and describe his situation, I'm more than welcome to have that happen, as long as everybody's okay with that. But that's up to you, for sure.
Yep.
I don't want to leave
Good right
him
now.
out
So
of the conversation.
I'll put you in touch with Sean too, so you can talk to him in the future. So.
Right? Thank you. I appreciate that. Yo, so one question that I do have to ask you though is like, how has your personal life changed since this situation happened? Just afterwards, when you went back home.
Yeah. Well, it's changed quite a bit. I still live on the farm, and other than being noticed wherever you go, and being a lot more conversations everywhere you go, I guess. When I'm in Big Red, I've got people that are constantly honking and waving away, and I've even had to pull over on the side of the highway for some people for a little chit chat. My wife gets a little irritated. I'm the kind of guy when somebody sends me a message, I usually have to respond in some way, if it's a positive one, of course. So I will usually get up a little bit earlier and sit and have my coffee and respond to. You get your Facebook messages, and then you've got your TikTok messages, your Snapchat, and Instagram a little bit. Twitter, I'm a little still intimidated by. I've got a few followers on there, but it's a lot of time on social media responding to people, and that's definitely taken effect on my personal life. I have to really kind of question that one sometimes, but yeah, life's changed for sure. And events now, like I said before, we went to Calgary for Canadians for Truth. Chipiac. I'll be going back there on the 19th for Tom Marazzo is going to be in Calgary.
Your mic fucked up. Your mic just fucked up for some reason, bro.
Hang on. Getting a phone here. Is it back now?
There you go. Good.
Okay. There we go. I was getting a phone call there. Sorry. I was maybe saying something I shouldn't have because the lawyer just called. So.
Damn. Oh, Jesus. Well, I'm not trying to push you into anything. I'm trying to be as respectful as possible.
He's probably not on TikTok, so he's probably fine, but he's phoning for bullshit. Like I said, we play by the rules pretty respectively. Yeah, February 9th, I'll be in Lloydminster, Saskatchewan for Jamie Soleil and Theo Fleury, our two Canadian Olympic medalists. They're going to do the Fire and Ice show, and I'll be the one that they're interview against. So February 9th, that'll be an exciting time. And I've never had a live studio audience up until the first time I did an event for Jamie and Theo at the end of November after the inquiry. So it was kind of cool. It's once you get settled in, and I think I sat on a stage out in Ottawa here in November. That was probably one of the biggest stages I could possibly be on with the most amount of people watching, and I seemed like I did all right. So.
How do you feel about public speaking?
I suck at it. I can do a TikTok and hit, thousands and thousands of people, but at least it's controlled. And right now there's 300 people in the room here watching. I think, I get nervous, but I realize that it's a good conversation. It's a good way to get the truth out too. So I'm getting better at it.
Does a room like this feel similar to if you were to be speaking in front of a large group of people?
A little bit different because it's more censored, right? If I don't want to look at the comments right now, I don't have to. Whereas the one live event I was at in Calgary, there the audience is fairly interactive, so you didn't get heckled, but you get conversation. It's nice to interact with the crowd too. Like with the other night with Eva being on stage in Calgary, there was 150, 200 people in the room, and there was people yelling out and conversation going on between the stage and the audience, and it was awesome. I actually really, really like that. It's nice.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. I've never been in a situation where it's a discussion and then also the crowd is like yelling out and having a conversation with everybody that's doing their thing.
Yeah, in a positive way, of course. So it was good.
So I want to ask you, if you're able to say anything about this, do you believe that the initial movement has evolved into something new? And where do you see things in the next year, even if they're not happening, like doing anything? Like, where do you see people and like their ideas in the next year?
Well, I definitely see a fractured liberal government right now that's trying to get past its awakening, I guess. Trying to deal through that, and knowing that we've opened up a certain amount of people's eyes, I guess. I don't know where it's necessarily going right now. I kind of worry about some of the places that people are trying to take it. Um, the, what we did this week, we had the entire group of people were back together for a board meeting. We've morphed the Convoy guys into an organization called Freedom Corp, and fighting it out with the courts right now with that. There's what is there, 8 board members, I believe. So we had board members meetings on Wednesday in Calgary. We discussed the path forward, what we were going to do moving forward, and to try and figure out what's best suited for the supporters that follow. So some of the ideas we had were, moving forward in a place where we can help defend Canadians that are being persecuted by their government. And and I know this personally right now, if it wasn't for the JCCF, my lawyer bills would probably have broke me already, and I'd be in deep shit. But and they're supporting me going forward right now too, as well as the civil lawsuits that are all going on right now. So we thought maybe about moving forward like that, having some sort of an organization, to help Canadians and defend them against unjust governments and unjust tickets. You got Arthur Pawlowski out right now. It's under some serious restrictions, and so is Chris Scott from the Whistle Stop. These are average Canadian guys that had enough of the overreach and decided to stand up, and they've been essentially squashed, right? Arrested. We've all spent time behind bars and are on bail right now for beliefs that we didn't think were a bad thing, but the government did because we went against that narrative. So
100%. So with all these stories that you have and all of these individuals that you know have been impacted, what can you tell us about the type of impact that you believe the convoy has had on Canada and Canadian citizens?
I believe it woke a lot of people up. I believe it united a lot of people. I believe it also divided certain people too, right? There's certain factions within families that don't speak to each other because of it, I guess. That saddens me a little bit. Like I said, there's people within my own family that are like that. Um, but I believe most importantly, people woke up. One of the biggest impacts I think we had was people. I guess I spending as much time in the United States as I have over the years. I've always admired the fact that the American flag is always high and proud. And coming to Canada now, the Canadian flag is that way now, and we had something to do with that, I'd say. I'm in Robsart, Saskatchewan, and I'm finally meeting somebody in town driving up Main Street. So,
There's
small
one person.
Saskatchewan works, they'll say, "Are you okay?"
They want to see what's going on. There's a
Hopefully, it
lot
keeps
of
going.
action happening downtown.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
lights. There's lights down there.
Yeah, somebody with a sled trailer going to the mountains, I'd say. So,
Oh man.
yep, and it has to get out of the
Okay.
truck to make sure we're okay. Welcome to small town Saskatchewan.
I gotta ask you,
Yeah,
man.
we're okay. So, give me 2 seconds here. I'll just mute for a sec.
You're good. You're more than good. I will address everybody in the chat below and everybody that's here for the conversation. I appreciate you guys being here. I'm going to plug in my phone. We're going to keep the conversation going for a little bit. We will keep it going. Make sure that you address any comments or any questions that you have below. I have a few more questions to ask Chris, but it's going to be more of just a relaxed conversation for the rest of the evening. Kind of,
Okay, I'm
because I
good.
have a little bit of... okay, you're good? What happened? What's up?
It was the customer. It was the customer. He was busy or he wasn't home, so he just seen me parked on Main Street and had to come and say, "Hey, are you okay?" Like I said, if
So
this
it's
was
like
50
that
years
small of a
earlier, the
town.
little
He was like,
hotel
"Yo,
would
I
be good.
saw you down there, man. I saw you down there parked." I was like, wondering what was going on. I figured I'd come down and ask what's up.
Robsart, Saskatchewan, you never really know. So
Yeah.
this is the good part about rural Saskatchewan, right? That a lot of people, in the big cities all across the country, you're broke down on the side of the road and people drive by you, they don't even stop. But you're in Robsart, Saskatchewan. I've seen one vehicle and he stopped to make sure I was okay.
So, dude, I got a few more questions for you, and I really do appreciate this conversation. I really do
Oh,
think that you're an interesting person that a lot of people really are interested in learning about what's going on inside your brain. And I like that. And why I like it is because my relation to you has been very calm and relaxed. Like I think I added you on Facebook or sorry, or here on like TikTok and we've talked a few times, we comment on a few things. I've seen you here and there and you're just a real human being. But when I bring you up, people look at you as though you're like this monolithic figure. And so, how do you feel about the impact that you have had on Canadian society? If you take a step back, look at how things are changing, and you have brought up yourself and Tamara, both you and Tamara, I believe, potentially could be ideological figures within Canadian society moving into the future. Whether people like it or not, whether they like your ideologies or not, there seems to be a change that has happened in this atmosphere that we're living through. How do you feel being at the center of that controversy?
Still don't feel like I'm deserving of it, I guess. Just a short story. Yesterday, I was downtown Calgary having a meeting with some high upper people, and Keith and Eva were both there, the lawyers, and the guy across the table said, I don't think you understand the impact that you had on just average Canadians or how big your impact was across the world per se. And I kind of smiled and shook my head, and Keith jumped back and he said, you know what, Chris, that's just you right there. You still don't see it. And I don't. I'm still that guy. Come over to my place and we'll have a few beer on the couch. And, my phone's a little busier now. I think it's all for the good. I think the most invaluable lesson about the last 12 months is that I've matured a lot, and I'd say there's a lot of things in my past that are regretful, posting and the trolling that I used to do, and I've seen a better side of myself because of that, so I can be proud of that. So if anything good that's come out of this in the last 12 months is it's made me definitely mature. And I for that. I just seen it in a comment run for PM. I am not a politician, nor do I ever want to be a politician. I'm going to be a truck driver. I like hauling shit.
So, okay, so so you want to be a truck driver. You want to just not have that responsibility of influencing individuals, but you've been thrust into this position of influencing individuals. How does that feel?
It feels, yeah, there's a lot of responsibility on that, and there's a lot of eyes on that. So, yeah, you're trying to be accountable to those people that respect you and think of you that way is the top priority, I guess. I still have to make a living, and so far, my role in the freedom movement here hasn't been very prosperous. It's cost me a lot. I've got a good business, and I need to work with that business to make my bills. I'm not a wealthy guy by any means. I've worked really hard for what I have, and I continue to work, but you still have a
Well,
mortgage, no different than anybody else.
we have a good 300 people here. If you want to shout out your business name to them, I think a lot of them are in support of you. If you want them to, if they're in the area, to come out and if they need that work to be done, go ahead. I'm not against it.
I run a small company, so I'm busier than can be. It's my initials, so it's just CB Trucking, and I do egg hauling. I'm not looking for any advertisements. We are so busy right now. I've grown this business, since 2006, and it's been unbelievable. We run 4 trucks right now on hot shot. I've got employed. My son works is my top guy. Like I said, I lost Jay, one of my best employees. He woke up. Well, that's his card right there. It was
Nice.
November
Thank
27th.
God.
He
Yeah.
called me to tell me he was in trouble and he was going to the hospital. And I missed his phone call, and I thought Jay probably drank too much the night before. He was in the bar, or he didn't take his blood pressure medication. We've done this before, and I thought I'd have my coffee and I'd call him back. And I called him back, but it went to voicemail. And about 2 hours later, I got a call from his mother saying that he was gone. And it was that simple. It was that fast, and he just he's left me reeling. I get a little emotional thinking about it because that guy was one of the hardest working, most qualified guys to do his job in Western Canada, as far as I'm concerned. He pulled air seeders. So you're 30 feet wide. You do 25 to 40 kilometers an hour all day long, pulling these huge things down. You're 150 feet long. The weight of the air seeder you're pulling overweighs your truck by, 5 times. And I've done it. I had to jump in his truck and bring it home, and then I started hauling drills with it. And I every day I'm in his truck pulling equipment. I miss him even more. So we've been struggling, and I'm not a guy that likes to hire employees. I need to know you personally. If you work for my company, there's a standard that I keep you to. I've raised my son that way for 19 years, making sure he knows, and he's the perfect role for what I want as somebody to take over the company. And Jay was one of those guys too. I have Dale is another guy that he was with us in Ottawa. Um, he works for me too as a lease operator with his own truck. His wife and him, Aaron. They fit the role quite well, and you keep it small and simple, and it works.
Yeah, with the company aspect. I need to say this to you. I need to ask you in general, in retrospect. I'm sorry for your loss. I see everybody in the chat as
Thanks.
well. Everybody is very emotional. I'm a little bit emotional, trying to gain myself together because I'm super emotional. Like I hate hearing about these stories. I hate hearing about the impacts that individuals have had depending on the situations that are going on. And so, like, how I can ask this and why I'm being so emotional in 2023, right? Um, What impacts have you seen of individuals that you love or that you know leaving us? And have you seen an increase from before 2023?
In depth,
Or is
yeah,
it becoming an issue that we need to be increasingly worried about?
it is. Yeah, I
I'm
firmly
trying to
believe
be
it
very,
is.
by the way, I'm trying to be very, on the live stream, we got to figure out how we can put forward words that are not going to get this algorithm knowing what we're discussing. As human beings, we know
Yeah.
what's going on. So, as a human being in 2023, have you seen a larger impact of the way people are being dealt with, or what is your thoughts?
I don't know if I've ever seen as many obituaries. And there's a lot of conspiracy theories, and I'm probably involved with more of those people sending those conspiracy theories to me than ever before. And it's kind of you got to weed through it because some of them are rabbit hole deep. And then the next one is it makes sense, and I think a lot of them are making sense right now. I know there's a funeral director or funeral home director in my hometown that is scared shitless of the health authority and speaking out against it, but seeing people rolling across his table with these stories of the rumors. And if you say anything, you won't get your license renewed. And I think that's maybe some of the directions some people need to start going at next is to try and get accountability out of our government officials into what the hell's going on here. My daughter's fully vaccinated. She's 17. I wasn't happy about it, but watching her go through the emotional stress she was going through in high school, being singled out for not being vaccinated, um, it kind of broke my heart to see that she was bullied into getting vaccinated,
Mm-hmm.
and then she got COVID.
Irony at its finest.
Yeah,
But
like
as
I
long
said,
as she's
make it make
okay.
sense. Yeah, she's okay. She's been good. We've all done our shots. My father was a big proponent of it. My dad is a staunch conservative country boy. He's my nearest neighbor, and he was for it. He was, Chris, just go get your vaccine. You'll do good for your family. We need to get past this, la la la. And he got his second shot. My father's 70 years old. He got his second COVID booster, and his gallbladder quit working. It was about 6 months before he got in for surgery to have his gallbladder taken out. 6 or 3, I don't remember what it was. I basically watched my father grow old in a matter of a few short months, and now he shuffles when he walks. It took a lot out of him. I watched it physically, and whether that's There's those rumors out there, the conspiracy theory out there, the COVID vaccine will go for the weakest organ. Maybe so, maybe not. I don't know. But there's a lot of those stories out there, and you have to kind of start wondering if some of them may be a little factual.
I don't have any information to disagree with you, and I don't have any information to confirm what you're saying. I'm simply here to listen to what you have to believe and bring up to the conversation, and I appreciate that. I think anybody who disagrees or does agree should probably look it up for themselves and try to figure out how they
Yep.
believe. We're just simply here to have the conversation. I do have to kind of push it forward a little bit just because I want to get your opinion on quite a few things if you're here for it. And I don't want you to leave before I'm able to ask you some very interesting conversations or questions from my own personal point of view. Um, After everything has happened, right? Looking back on the situation in the last few years, would you do everything again the exact same way, or would you change some things in the way that you uh, dealt with the situation?
I got to be careful how I answer that, of course. I think I would, yeah, there'd be a few more things I would do different. There's a few people that I would have questioned a little bit more. Looking at it now, I'd say that everybody has a motive, some good, a lot good, far more good than bad. But there's a few of the true colors that have shown through in the last little while that make me question why somebody was involved or question why we were close, I guess. And that would be some of the things, the only things that I would essentially change. There's a lot, like I can go right into, you know, how things transpired, I guess, 12 months ago. Yeah. Do I want some of the negative stuff that's happened to be out there? No, I would have done. I tried everything in my power to make anything happen, but it was only one guy, right? Um, yeah, I got to be careful how I answer that, but all I could say is there's things I would definitely do different, and then
Let
there's
me.
things I
Oh,
would
sorry, my phone fell over.
go ahead.
Let me rephrase it. So not with the convoy itself. How about I reiterate it with like the idea of like how you have expressed yourself. Listen, I'm a black man living in Canada, and you're a white man living in Canada, but we're from different generations. Like I said earlier, you're a bit
Yeah,
older than I am. It's very like maybe we're the same age, but we don't. We're probably a little bit different generations, and we grew up in different situations. You have different ideologies that you have put forward on the internet before you realize that the entirety of Canada was going to know who you are. And
exactly.
in retrospect, you thought, guess what? If every like regardless of if everybody knows what you're saying, you took a step back and said, maybe what I'm saying for even just a few people that are around me is not acceptable. And that's okay, regardless of if you have
Yeah.
changed or not. That's not even where I'm coming from. I just want. I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know what I'm saying at this point. Like I'm not trying to.
No,
I'm trying to say I'm not trying to attack you. Like I'm a
no,
black man
no,
in Canada, and I respect. Like we wouldn't be able to have this conversation for the amount of time that we were right now if you had any negative attributes to individuals who were of a
right.
different race. A racist individual, right? A person that was not accepting of different races. And so I don't
Yeah.
put that on you. So a question that I could ask, at least to like bring things into some sort of sense. What is your response to individuals who label you racist or any sort of these other terms when I have clearly told you myself I identify as a black, whatever label you want to put me with the sexuality thing, go ahead and do whatever you want. I'll say queer. I always say queer because that's the best thing. It's like I'm whatever you want. I'm queer. I'm queer as fuck. I'm a black queer male in Canada, and you have sat down for a conversation with me for over an hour. So, what would you respond to individuals who would call you a racist or homophobe?
Why I don't? Yeah, That's usually the first narrative that people go to for an attack mode, and we know that through the public inquiry that was the first thing the government wanted to do was to label us as that, and they admitted that, or we found that out through documents, I guess. Everybody's entitled to an opinion. Anything I've done in the past, I have owned. I take full responsibility for it. I regret certain things that I've done in the past, and in my mind, I don't know what more anybody I could do for anybody. If you think that way about me, I'm sorry. For you thinking that way, I would. If you and I were sitting at a table right now, I would probably pick the check up for the beer that we drank. I don't care about your skin color. I don't care about your sexual orientation. Do your thing. I've got, you know, I've got lots of friends out there now. My wife is Métis. I can't do anymore. If somebody wants to dwell in the past, I guess they can dwell in the past all they want, but I'm not going to. I'm going to go forward and keep preaching what we've been preaching and trying to bring people together. And if somebody doesn't like that, then that's that's their seat to sit at. I'm not going to bother myself with the people that still want to think back that. Like I said, if I didn't own it, if I denied it, if I acted like an asshole still to this day, if I posted things that were inappropriate, you would have all the room to come back at me. But I don't. So, and I think that's a
Mhm.
huge thing right there. I've always said, take responsibility for your actions. I preach that to my kids on a regular basis. Anytime, Jonathan watching him truck now at 19 and he wrecks something, the phone always rings and I get to spiel how I know that he did something and I know that he's taking responsibility for it. And I've always said to him, as long as you don't bullshit me and you tell me the truth, I will always forgive you no matter what it is. And he knows that. And it's the way it should be, I think. Maybe I've raised my kids right.
And it's the way that society looks at things, where it's a hard line between what I have believed and what I do believe and what I am putting forward into the world today.
You gotta
Um,
remember we're
are
such a
you?
s- we're such a sensitive generation. Anything is offensive nowadays, and some people live in a bubble. It's almost and just people. I'm the farm boy. I was raised that way. When your dog's sick, you don't drive it to Swift Current for a euthanasia shot. You take it out behind the barn and you shoot it. I've had to do that many times. Now, when his turn comes, I'll be taking them to town to a vet. But like I raised a little more. Like I've been around pigs my whole life, cows, horses. I'm a farm boy. I'm an outdoors kind of guy.
I don't think that description resonates with most Canadians. I understand exactly where you're coming from, and I kind of have an opposite perspective. We can talk in the chat about that because it's like a personal thing where it's like, you have dealt with that. Yeah, 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 I feel where you're coming from, man. I hope that Ziggy is the name?
Zippy.
Zippy. Zippy.
Hmm.
My dog's Conan. She's over here. You can't see her because I have this background on. She's sitting right beside me, laying down, sleeping. And
Yeah.
you know, they my goal is that they live forever. Like we don't ever want them to we don't ever want them to be gone. They're here
I
with us
had to put.
forever. But either way, it's
I
like
had
you're
to
my
put.
best friend. You got to leave.
Yeah.
You're leaving me. You got to go. Can I ask you one more
No.
question? One final
Yeah.
question? Nothing. Or you're out. You're out.
No, you're good. Go ahead. I'm here. I was just gonna say I had a dog with me for 15 years in the truck, and I had to put him to sleep, and I did it. The vet came right to the truck and did it right in the passenger seat. So the last thing that he ever seen was the inside of the truck, and his if we were in Big Red right now, his collar still hangs from the sun visor and the thing there. And I've had Zippy now for I think 9 years, and I know the thought of him. Gosh, I don't know. He's such an animated little ass, and I don't know what I'd do without him. But
Such a part of your life. Like he's like, yeah, no, they're your best friend. Like Conan's my
yeah, yeah.
first like long term best friend. I've had lots of dogs growing up, but only for a couple of years or a year or two. I've had Conan for the last 12 years. I could not imagine my life without her.
Oh,
Like I cannot imagine. And it one day will happen perhaps, but I'm not thinking about that life until it is there. Right now, we're chilling. We're having a good time. We're every time I pick up the book's holding up my phone because I have it on the charger now. Actually, I can take it up. Did you say you have to end the stream though? You have to end up. You gotta leave.
no, no, I'm good for a little bit yet. So.
Oh, okay. I thought that you said that you had to end the leave. Um, I have a few questions for you at least. I normally go to 11:30, so we got like 40 minutes here. I got a couple questions. I don't know if I have enough to filter it all out, but anybody that's in the comments is able to push forward questions that I'm still writing down. And you and I think, can just have a conversation about anything in general in order to get to there. And so, one thing that I do want to ask you is a little bit controversial, right? So, like anything that I'm saying, I'm not coming at you. I'm not trying to attack you. And if you have like you can always say next question or like I don't want to talk about that or whatever. It's all fine. No, it is. It's true. Like you can just say that. That's all fine. Um, the question is this, man. Yeah, like what was your perspective while you were in Ottawa, and were you on the ground? Okay, let me rephrase this so it's not so leading or like what's the deal, man? I've heard a lot of people say that you weren't actually like chilling in your truck for like the 3 weeks in Ottawa. Were you in a hotel room? Did you chill out? Did you like
Yep.
leave people like just out there to be cold and live their lives?
Well, as you know, Red was downtown for I think 7 days. My wife was there, my son was there, and Zippy. So yeah, I was in a hotel room um, for the entirety of it, and I don't see anything wrong with that. We kind of flipped hotels back and forth. I don't know if you know the inside of a truck, but the bed isn't very big back there. And when you've got a teenage son and a dog and a wife, I will take the hotel any given day over that. I've heard the comments said that we were 3 meals a day. I had COVID for crying out loud. A lot of people don't know that, but I got COVID on
Yeah.
the way out there, and I got a few people sick. I was run down, and the thing with COVID is you can't sleep. So shit, I would average 2 to 3 hours a night, and you were up gone the next day. I remember I left the hotel room one morning, and I told my wife, I'm just gonna go out for. I'll go get a coffee or something like that, and I'll be right back. And I came back at like 10:30 that night, and that was first thing in the morning. Um, it was a high-paced rodeo every day. It was 600 miles an hour. When I got home after the arrest and after the drive home, I sat in my living room watching a TV that wasn't even turned on at 4:30 in the morning. I didn't know what to do. I was at the peace and calm on the farm. There wasn't a sound to be had, and I got up because I couldn't sleep. And my head was spinning, and I literally sat in the living room in the dark and just didn't know what to do. I didn't have a phone. That was left in Ottawa. The police wouldn't give it back to me. So uh, the other day when I could go get a cell phone again and start looking on social media. And then, of course, this stuff, I go on social media and everybody's like, no, you can't be on there. My conditions never said anything about social media. Tamara's are absolutely insane. The amount of conditions she's under. She can't be on social media. There's a list of people that she can't be in contact with, some of which she doesn't even know, nor has ever met. I'm on that list, so every time we're in contact, we have to make sure the lawyers. She was with me in Calgary just 2 nights ago, and we kept Keith Wilson and Eva Chipiak busy because there had to be somebody in between us at every given time. Anytime a photo happened, Keith or Eva had to be right in the middle. We can't have a conversation unless they're right there. So it was an interesting night. We made it work. We did well at it. The amount of eyes on us, so we're careful. We're very careful, but yeah. Did I answer that one quite right? Kind of go off down the rabbit hole there a little bit. But
You definitely answered it, and you definitely answered it decently. Um, a question that people do have that you can choose to answer or not answer is: were you ever like formally charged with anything?
oh yeah, absolutely. So this is the latest rumor brought up by a couple conspiracy theory people that my arrest was fake. But as you know, I was arrested on February 17th in Ottawa. Um, we are charged with 6 indictable offenses. The Crown is seeking 2 to 10 years in federal prison. Tamara and I will be tried together in a court in Ottawa, September 5th, 2023. Um, I've got a charter application in that should be hitting the courts on the 16th and 17th of February. People would be probably a little interested to find out when they took my cell phone. They displayed it in its entirety to the courts, to the media. We had to do a publication ban on it right away. Conversations with my ex-wife, my mother, my children, my customers, business email addresses. Um, there's a lot of shit in there, 4,200 pages, and they just unloaded on the courts. So a lot of stuff in there had absolutely nothing to do with Ottawa, and so we've launched a charter challenge in there. And in some of that evidence that's been displayed is conversations with lawyers on text message that are right there, plain and simple. So that's a client solicitor privilege breach right there, and the lawyers that I have filed this week, I believe, and the trial for that will be February 16th, 17th. So I lost my cell phone in that arrest, as well as a pocket knife, and I had to leave Ottawa within 24 hours of release. Bail was on a file. Was on the 19th, I believe. 17th. I spent 26 hours in jail before my bail hearing. We had 24 hours to get out of the city. We had 72 hours to exit the province of Ontario. Then I was able to come back for the inquiry without any ramifications there, so that was a bonus. Yeah, so yeah, I've never had to deal with so many lawyers in my life as I have. Like I said, there's one texting me right now, and I missed this call a little while ago, but it's all for the good. Like I said, I've never been in the back of a police car before in my life. I've never been in a jail cell in my life. I've never been arrested. I don't have any criminal charges. So played it pretty clean my entire life. So
I'm glad to hear that, and I think that leads to credence around how you have become the individual that people look up to for certain aspects. Certain things that are being discussed here this evening, I don't want to be super inflammatory. I don't want to try to have a gotcha moment. I don't want to have anything that's like super outside the boundaries of an interesting conversation. But one thing that I do want to say that is kind of controversial, and then we could kind of try to move on to something that's not so controversial. I want to know your ideology around the idea of honk honk and how it has been used to denigrate this entire movement and what your thoughts around what it means are.
I don't know. There's lots of people out there. I guess. With semis, there's always that, right? The horns. Are they annoying? Yeah, they can be, definitely. Um, Something as a truck driver, for 30 years, I've always enjoyed is the little kids when, you're coming and they give you like you see kids standing on street corners in towns and then on highways if somebody's out and about. And then this is what they do. And the best thing you can ever do is grab that, give the horn a honk. Um, and then you see the smiles. The one that I really like is when the parents are focused on driving and you can see the kid in the back seat and they're pulling down, and you blow the horn and you scare the shit out of the parents in the front seat, which is it's kind of it's a humorous moment, and the kids are laughing and all happy in the back seat. It was never meant as a negative thing. I think it was meant as a wake up signal. Like I said there too, you got to be careful how I answer that because of the conditions, right? So I don't think it was ever a hurtful thing. It never has been.
I think that was a very good interpretation of how it has come across to individuals and why it doesn't necessarily represent what is being portrayed as and where people got their ideology behind the prospect of honk honk. When you go like this, honk honk, what are you doing? What is this? What kind of horn do you need to pull down?
So in the semis, you have two horns. You have your basic, your center horn on your steering wheel, but you have your air horns. So the air horn is on the roof of the truck, and there is in Jonathan's truck here. There's a leather strap that hangs from the ceiling, and you pull it, and you get air.
It makes you happy. It makes you smile. It makes you laugh. I mean, it's like, yeah, like for from a childish point of view, it's like, yeah, fucking. Yeah. It does make you laugh. It makes you very happy. I don't know. That may be coming from like a childish point of view, even just me like reminiscing from my own childhood. But like, that is what that fucking means. And when you try to take that away from me, it makes me upset because it's like that reminds me of being a kid. Like you said, in the car. You do this.
Yeah.
You have the car in the back seat, and then you
Yeah.
get somebody to do it. Yes. And I never even thought that the funny aspect for your point of view that the parents were probably afraid when they heard the
Yeah.
horn. But
Yeah.
for the kid, I'm just
You
like,
do.
I'm just gonna get you to honk it. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
honk that shit.
It's something that I absolutely love and adore, and it makes my day when I see a kid standing there or doing the hand signal. It pissed me off to no end when I seen that politician. I don't even know who it was, Anita, whatever her name is. Honk honk is an acronym for Hail Hitler. Where do you come up with this shit? Like honestly, that is so far fetched, and nobody's ever held her at account for that. This is a this is a politician, somebody running our country that's speaking absolute filth like that. She should be disciplined for that. It was uncalled for and very distasteful on my part when I seen that.
I don't disagree with you. I don't understand how individuals within our parliamentary, I don't know what the word is, our parliamentary, in our parliament, the individuals who we look up to support us as Canadian citizens that represent us in the parliament are able to put forward ideologies that are not based within reality. If that makes any more sense than parliamentarial.
Okay. 100%.
Yo, man, I really do appreciate this conversation, and I have a few more questions for you for sure, and they're hopefully not so adversarial because I appreciate the honesty and the questions and the answers that you've given throughout the evening.
You've done good. You've got some good. It's good content here. You're asking some very valid questions, and yeah, I don't feel as if I have anything to hide. Anything that was out there is already out there. So I'll answer them head on, and I don't mind
I
at all.
tried to
So yeah,
curate because you said there are certain like you got to figure out a certain way because like you got to understand you're not able to speak about the situation that happened and certain things because it's an ongoing situation. But you're your own real human being who has your own emotions that is able to speak on the world around you. And that's what we're kind of talking about here tonight. And I'm trying to do this here on this channel. I'm trying to take a step back and not combat so much. It doesn't need to be combative. It needs to be, you need to understand where people are coming from. Regardless if anybody in the chat agrees or disagrees with you being here and being able to speak your mind allows people to understand where you're coming from. And I really appreciate you coming on and speaking your mind to me this evening.
I know, and I like the opportunity. So, and you've been fair with your questions, and yeah, no, it's been an awesome time. I've been happy with it. So,
Thank you. I appreciate that. Hopefully in the future we can have another conversation and it maybe due to who knows what's going on, but we'll definitely keep in contact. But I have a few more questions for you, so I'm going to ask you something right now. Right now. Okay. This is kind of something that is okay. I don't want to preface it. What is the biggest issue that you currently see in Canadian society?
I guess the civil divide. Um, we've got. Why does it have to be so split? You've got you're either left or you're right. There doesn't seem to be a middle ground. And then why are we not having an open conversation? I'm looking at every now and then I glance down at the comment section there, and if you have something hateful to say, my mother always said it too. You got something, keep it to yourself. But people are so out there with their thought right now. They'd rather criticize and call people names than have an open debate and see if they can work their issues out. I be the first one to say that I could have a beer with anybody, and the people that I block on social media now are blocked because I find them annoying. But we got that civil discord that's going on right now. You're either left or you're right. You're either hateful or you're either calling somebody hateful. I wish we could get rid of that. We honestly could. We there's life is too bloody short out there, isn't it?
No, I definitely
Got my,
agree. The ideology that life is too short to be blaming individuals for your own shortcomings.
I dropped my phone. I had a phone thing in my truck that I can actually hang on the dash here, but I don't have that in Jonathan's truck. So
You got to hold it. Well, I appreciate you being
yeah,
got that strength. You got that arm strength that you that's been
yeah.
going on throughout the whole evening, holding up the phone.
Resting on the steering wheel, so we're good here. But
Yo, man. How about this? This was supposed to be the second question that I asked you, but I never even asked you this question at all. Can you describe to us the situation, movement in your own words in retrospect? What are your thoughts about it?
oh, life altering, I guess. I don't know. It was mind blowing, and to think that we had impact all over the world. I guess we're going to meet with Christine Anderson next month in Calgary, which was pretty cool. European chancellor, whatever her party or her power is. That, and then she's coming here to see primarily Tamara and I, and that's awesome. That's humbling as all hell. I get nervous with that one because she's somebody that you can kind of look up to for what she called Trudeau right in the middle of the EU, and it had a huge impact. So good on her for what she did there and standing up for freedom. And she's behind us 100% going forward too. So knowing we have people there that are backing us or standing with us is a good thing. Even going back 12 months, there was people in political roles or leadership or past leadership that we were speaking with on a daily basis. So if anything, the news media tried to vilify us on that, but they should have maybe, it should have maybe shown people that we were a little bit more legitified us, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, instead of demonized us.
Yeah. So in the future, where do you see this movement heading? If you're able to speak about that at all.
Honestly, right now, I've got my court stuff to deal with for the next little while here, so I don't know where it's going to go. I know where it probably needs to go is political now. I think some of the key players, and not myself, but some of the people maybe need to take it to a political role. I know Joseph Burgo was somebody that was really right there with us, and he started that foundation, the Canadians for Truth. And him and Jamie Soleil and Theo Fleury are trying to get the truth out and speaking on a regular basis. So I think that'll morph itself maybe into some sort of a political role. I've been approached by federal. I don't want to say names, but I've been approached by political parties within this country that want to work together, and I don't really know if I'm there quite yet. So I kind of just held them off on it. I don't really want to go there. If somebody else that's in the leadership role wants to, all the power to them. Um, Busy trying to keep my trucking company going right now. And like I said before, I don't want to be affiliated with one single party or back that single party just to see where things go in the future. I don't know where it's going to go. It's honestly it's up in the air. I think people's eyes are open, and I think people are continually waking up now. Some of their relatives are dying all of a sudden of strokes and heart attacks, and maybe thinking, "Holy shit, did something happen here?" And I think the longer this goes on, I think the more people are waking up. You're always going to have the people that are sleeping.
I agree. I definitely do agree. Um, Asking the comments below, does anybody have any thing that they would like to bring up in a respectful manner to Chris this evening? I think we've had a very interesting conversation. I've learned a lot about you that I didn't know before this conversation. And I appreciate you being here for this type of discussion. And I want to know if anybody has any other questions to ask you, because I'm feeling very satisfied with the questions that I've asked you and the responses that you've given. the discussion that we've had, I feel like I know a lot more about you this evening than I did before I came into this conversation. One thing that I will say for everybody here, because this triggers liberals, right? Somebody said in the comments, you see this. What are your ideas? The bouncy castles. The bouncy castles. What are your thoughts on that?
I never had time to take part in them, so probably would have got kicked off of it if I tried. But I remember walking up to a police officer because we did this on a regular basis. There was a police officer standing there, and I'd always this was my favorite. My main question I always said, "Was there any issues? Was there anything that we need to deal with?" And he looks over, and there's a hot tub, and there's guys sitting, and he's like, "I kind of think you're losing your your edge here with this sort of stuff." And I kind of yeah, possibly you're right there. It was a kid atmosphere though. The hockey rink. A lot of people don't know this, but we had like 47 NHL players flying in the weekend that it all ended. Hey, and there was going to be some hockey on the streets, I'm sure, and and that ended before it could come. So it was sad, honestly sad. So
it all ended before it began. Sorry. It ended before it began. The idea of the hockey players. Sorry. Jesus.
Yeah. It was a possibility. I don't know where it would have went. Like I said, I was busy with other stuff all the time too, so I didn't have much time to get involved with that. That was just what I was told. So
we didn't talk about that much tonight, but that's like that really does go into like the deeper conversation that we could have. But like I don't want to get too hard into like the investigational journalist point of view. Right now I'm here for like a open journalist point of view where we can just have a real conversation with real people. But when you say things like that, like you have throughout the evening, that you weren't there, you don't actually know because you weren't actually participating, but you are considered one of the individuals who are at the forefront of the leadership of this movement. How does that make people like you, or sorry, like me, or somebody else that was going to come and actively participate in this situation when somebody like you, who is supposed to be leading the movement, wasn't even there? You don't really even know. You don't even know any of the situations that I brought up that happened during the con thing. And
that's how busy it was.
Pardon?
It was a busy time, and I think that's where a lot of people will the truth behind when those stories can come up. There was a lot going on behind the scenes. I was up on the stage a little bit, but that wasn't always where I was best served. So where I was best served was, there was an altercation where somebody had troubles down on Bank Street, and an ambulance had to be called to help, and police were there. The crowd got rowdy, I guess, towards police, thinking the police were coming in, and a whole bunch of officers came in and a whole bunch of protesters, and we had minutes to get to that part of town to make sure that everything was de-escalated. And so when like, I wasn't worried about the bouncy castles. I wasn't worried about the other stuff that was going on. My main goal, myself personally, there was other people that could be up there speaking and doing stuff like that. My main goal was to make sure everybody was safe and looked after, and there was no issues to come. And if there was an issue, how fast could I be there with other people to make sure that those issues were resolved? So that was my priority. And there was other people out there that had other jobs. Like I said, everybody had a role, and I believe everybody did the best they could.
I don't think anybody didn't do the best they could. And I'm only bringing up this situation in the relation to, as an average individual who came to the event, I didn't see you, bro. I didn't see you once. I definitely saw your truck. I didn't see you, though. And that potentially could be because, like you said, you weren't there most of the time. And that's okay, in relation to how you were enacting your own roles in this situation that happened. It's just an interesting thought process around how things went down, especially for somebody and individuals who came there from the grassroots movement, because it is a grassroots movement. But once you got there, like you said, there are certain individuals who had different roles that they had to enact. And that is relating to. We're not going to get into this right now because I don't really want to like argue. We're not going to argue, but like discussions about like political ideologies and how they relate to different like situations that were enacted throughout this situation. Because my own personal beliefs is I definitely think that it was the most communist um, situation that could ever happen and enacted properly, but only within the proper boundaries of everybody acting properly in this situation. Um, but regardless, we can come back to this at another future date because we don't have much time to go into that sort of situation. You can definitely disagree. I just think that it was a very interesting situation that we saw everybody helping each other out, working together, utilizing the means of production that was there by the individuals, and having them being at the forefront of the leadership of what was being said. And when we go into retrospective actions, like retrospective looks of what happened at this situation, a question that I can ask you, I asked you this earlier, but I'm going to ask you again. Is there anything that you would have liked to have seen, not for yourself, because I asked this differently before, not for yourself, but is there anything that you would like to have seen happen differently by people that chose to do their own thing out there in the world?
I would have really liked a little bit more less rhetoric from our leader. I think that played heavily onto what happened and what transpired. I think being called names and right off the bat just divisive. Um, that was a really bad decision on his part, I think. And I'd say that would be probably one of the biggest things that I would like to have seen handled different. Maybe like you're Canadian and you have a leader, and whether you voted for that person or not, that person's still supposed to represent you. And being divisive like that towards all Canadians or separating or dividing is not. And like Eva said at the inquiry, that's not the job of a prime minister. Prime minister's job primarily should be to bring Canadians together, but with respect to seeing something different, I would have to say that's one of the biggest things. And I think it would have been handled a lot different if leadership would have been better at the time.
Mm-hmm. How would you um, how would you try to promote better leadership in? And no, I'm not trying to say if you're not trying to make a new. Listen, let's firmly say this. There's no new format. There's no new movement. But in retrospect, what would you change with the leadership that happened in that movement to make it better?
I don't know if I could. Everybody, like I said, everybody had a role, and it wasn't like there was people in there that shouldn't have been in there. There was people in there that should have been in there. It wasn't really my spot to say that, I guess. I did the best that I could with what I had, and what everybody else chose to do was what they could. So then that was the best part about an organic grassroots moment like that, I guess.
Yeah, you can't choose who's in charge. You don't choose who
No.
gets thrust into leadership positions. It happens, and then you deal with the repercussions later. Hence why we're having this discussion. You didn't choose to be pushed into this position in which you are right now, but you are at the forefront of Canadian political discussions. And whether you want to be or not, you are. And the things that you
Yep.
do and you choose to enact have an impact on a lot of Canadian citizens. And that is a very interesting point of view. Whether or not you want to impact people, everything that you do impacts Canadians as a whole. How does that feel?
Well, it's good. You know what? One thing that Keith Wilson has said many times to me, he says, this is his favorite saying, was, Chris, you are in the land of consequences. Everything you do and everything you don't do has a consequence, is what he laughs. And so I have to watch that on my social media a little bit more. And he constantly keeps me in check to the stuff that and somebody attacks myself or my friends, my instinct is to lash out and fight back. And so Keith has been that that person to kind of
Your
read
word
me.
has a little bit more of an impact than the average individual who's just out there
Yeah.
anonymously talking stuff. Like you can't just say whatever you want to say without it having an impact on
No,
Canadians.
gosh. Do I wish I could some days when I hear some of the rhetoric, just leading through some of the comments, in the bottom there, put me in a room with some of these people and I guarantee they wouldn't be saying what they're saying, but, I have to watch that. So, it's the good thing about the internet. You can talk all the shit you want from behind your keyboard. My face is right here, but a lot of people, they're too scared to put their face out there.
Hmm. I definitely feel that. I definitely feel that ideology. I have to ask you one thing that's very controversial, and you don't have to answer in a political point of view, but you do have to answer in just like as like a it's like a you're a dude. You're like as like you're strong enough. You can answer it like yes, this happened. No, this doesn't happen. So I'll give you like the two questions in succession so that you're able to answer it that way. In the comments, people are very viscerally angry about the idea that you yourself have grifted right wing individuals and that you have they want to know where the money went. So I don't want to even get too hard into that. But also, the second part of the question is: have you seen right wing grifting situations, and what is your relation with that? But remember the first part of the conversation.
So when you say where's the money, what are you talking about? The money that was raised throughout the
That's what they're
situation, or are you
asking.
talking?
That's what they're
Oh,
asking. Yes. Where's the money? That's the first
I
part.
can be
Yeah.
I could be wide open with that one right there. So the GoFundMe was originally around the $10 million mark before it was shut down. GoFundMe released about $1 million into a bank account that was Tamara Leach's savings account. She added me to that bank account for full transparency. We didn't have a corporate bank account. We didn't have any bank accounts, and then we got GoFundMe, wanting to release $1 million with persuasion because they had us all locked down. So there was about $400,000 in e-transfers. This is all public information, by the way. This was disclosed to the public emergency inquiry. It could be all found online. But people don't always like to do their research on it, so we can talk about it. When the GoFundMe was shut down, the money was then there was whatever it was, $9 million, something like that. It was given back to the Canadians, and it was given back to the people that donated it because of public pressure on GoFundMe. If you'll remember GoFundMe when they froze the accounts, they wanted to give that to a charity or organization of their choice instead of giving it back to the people that donated it. So pressure was put out. GoFundMe gave that money back. So there's basically $1.4 million in a bank account, which we had access to probably $14,000 before everything was frozen at the beginning of February. And so the government essentially came in and everything was frozen. The Give Send Go at that time, I believe, when GoFundMe shut down, was somewhere around $9 million American. And then that's an American company. So Jacob Wells and his sister own that company. They were scared that that money was going to be transferred into escrow or government hands, and so he gave it back to the people that donated it. But in the meantime, a Canadian company called Stripe or Stripe, one of the two, had about 3 point some million dollars trapped in it. It was the company that takes the money out of your bank account and puts it in Give Send Go, and it was trapped in that account. So that then was added to the equation. So everything is in escrow. Everything is being fought for within the courts right now. Paul Champ has a $400 million lawsuit against myself. I'm the top plaintiff on that, as well as Tamara Leach and a number of other people. That is in court now. They're not even at the classification stage of it, so it's a long ways out. When that lawsuit's settled, the Ottawa Attorney General's office has a $3 or $4 million lawsuit against Tamara Leach and I. I believe we're the only ones named on that suit. So, yeah, out of everything that was there, I think it's about $5.2 million right now that's sitting in escrow in the courts. We have control over nothing, and we had no control over nothing. So I like how people like to jump to a conclusion thinking that, we grifted or scammed. Nothing like that. It was widely investigated. The government did a forensic audit on it. The lawyers did a forensic audit on it. It's been every penny's accounted for. So these people and these questions about that. Um, I have seen grifting within the movement, I guess, and it's unfortunate. I've seen a little bit of it here where people have run around the countryside trying to convoy and make money off of it, and I don't like it. It's not something. Or when you get out of the parking lot and you throw a pail down to collect dollar bills, that's not something that was ever part of the deal. So the ones that when they got home after went back to work, I did that, and I've been working ever since. So but I'll still take Big Red up for a charity ride if I can. I took Big Red up to Saskatoon last month for a clothing and food drive for the needy in Saskatoon. Parked it up there, minus 30 weather, and had an awesome day. So when I can do events like that and show some community support, I definitely take a chance.
Man, I feel that 100%. I definitely feel all of that, and I appreciate your response. In all honesty, I definitely think that you have been super honest and open, especially with the way that you have been restricted in the way that you're able to have the conversation. So I appreciate you being so open as you have been this evening.
Absolutely. Whenever we get that funds back, we're viciously fighting through it in the courts right now. I know there's some people that were in the movement that are not within the Freedom Corp side of it now that are fighting and complaining that they don't have legal representation and we do. And our stance has been there's a lawyer looking into it right now. He's working on it. He is fighting Paul Champ head on for us, and if we get a victory, then everybody on the suit gets a victory. um, and so there's a little bit of discrepancy out there with some of the stories that have come out, but we're working through it. Just like
Mhm.
everything, there's money involved. So then you see the greediness of just about anybody, and that's always something at the forefront. Then there's money involved, and you see the root of all angry people. I guarantee you that. But
Mhm. So I need to end the stream, but one final question that I do have for you this evening is where do you see yourself at this time next year?
hopefully driving truck and not sitting in a jail cell. But I guess we'll see. There's some people out there that desperately want to see that the trial go wrong. Um, I'd be really scared for Canada if it did. Honestly, like some of the there's some pretty horrific crimes that have happened out there that need a little bit more attention than somebody with mischief charges. But it is what it is. I hope I'm driving truck in a year, and I hope I'm still able to speak the truth and take part in things. And if I can help my community out or my country out in any way, I will definitely do my best. So,
Well, Chris, aka Big Red, I really do appreciate you coming out for the conversation. Everything that you have said this evening, I really do. I really am very thankful because you didn't need to do this. You didn't need to speak with me this evening. And once again, you are somebody who is in the forefront of Canadian society and the way that we are looking at politics moving to the forward movements that we are living our lives in. And so I appreciate you coming out tonight. Thank you very much.
thanks for having me, Todd. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Hopefully, someday we can do it with a beer over a bar table. So, and I'll buy.
Well, if you're driving truck, let me know whenever you're in Ontario. We'll definitely get together, bro.
What part of Ontario are you in? Can I ask?
GTA area, but outside in the country.
Okay. Well, you never know. I'll be headed that direction in September. If we'll see if we can make a trip out there.
All right. Well, I appreciate you this evening, and I appreciate you each and every day that I see you come up on my For You page. And I hope you all the best. I hope that things work out absolutely perfect for you in the future. And I
Thanks.
appreciate you coming on to speak with me this evening.
Hope it went well, my friend. Hopefully things go good. So yeah, we'll talk to you in the future. Anytime you want me to come on, just shoot me a message. So
Of course. Thank you, man.
thank you
Have a
so
good
much,
night,
sir.
eh?
Take care. Have a good night. Take care, man. See you later. If I
Amazing
could get
conversations
people here this evening. I appreciate everybody that's been in the comments below, that shared the stream, that has clicked like. We're up to 30,000 likes almost, and a good almost 200 shares. A lot of people that wanted to be introduced to the conversation. So I appreciate y'all being here. Make sure that you tap the screen and follow, I guess, the channel, because we have lots of interesting conversations with people that have interesting points of views. And that's what it's all about here on this channel, listening and learning about what people believe. And so if you're interested in that sort of thing, make sure you come on into the chat, follow the channel, and we go live Monday to Friday every week. We've been doing this in the new year. Live interviews, one-on-ones, and I really was interested in this conversation, and I think that it went very well from my own point of view. You can all let me know how you feel in the comments below, but I appreciate you all coming out. So who is next? I don't know. We have a few people next week. One person that I can let you know is Fire That Sees, the controversial individual. It's going to be on Thursday. We got Millennial Spike Lee coming in. Very interesting human being. And a few more people. But I'm not going to give it all away right now. We got a lot of people lined up for next week. Next week's going to be fun. I hope you all are here and are ready for the conversation. I see Jimmy Dirch there. He is lined up, perhaps, maybe Jimmy's going to be in next week. We don't know. We got lots of good individuals coming in. So I appreciate you all. Make sure you come out next week and check out the conversations that we have. Ending off on the Friday stream, I appreciate everybody in the comments below. With that being said, my name's Elder. This has been the Open Debate. And if you did not know, well, be your own hero, kids. Now you know.